Hey, what's going on? It's your boy NFF here, back with another video. Today, we're going to be doing ranking every starting NFL quarterback from the 2020-21. Today, we're going to be ranking every starting NFL quarterback 31 to 2, so let's get right into it. So starting off, we have the first subset of people that I'm going to call the replaceables. These are the people that, as the name suggests, will probably be replaced pretty soon. So for 32, 31, and 30, I'm going to go ahead and lump these three together because I kind of think they're all pretty much the same. That is Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, and Sam Darnold. All three of those are very similar where we know them as not great to say the least, and half of it we can blame the system and half of it we can blame their own talent. If I had to rank them, I'd probably put Drew Lock at 32, Daniel Jones at 31, and Sam Darnold at 30, just because I kind of think that Sam has shown the most flashes of brilliance, but he does still make terrible decisions, as do Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. That's why I'm saying they're all pretty much the same, so that's why I have them all here at the bottom. Last thing about these three is pretty soon they're all going to end up on different teams, so we'll get to see if they can kind of do something different in a new system. But for the most part, as of what we know right now, these three are at the bottom of the league. And at number 29, I kind of have a slash here because I'm not sure if I'm counting Mike Glennon or Gardner Minshew as the Jaguars starting quarterback, because obviously we know Trevor Lawrence is going to come in. But if I'm ranking Mike Glennon / Gardner Minshew, I'm kind of putting them right next to this little subset of three people. I just think that Gardner Minshew has actually shown that he could be a good quarterback. Like, he's already done that, and he's already been in a system that's questionable as we know it. And he hasn't really had weapons, so we're not really sure what Gardner's capable of. So a change of scenery will be good for him if we can eventually get there. The problem is finding Gardner a change of scenery in the first place. At 28, we have Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is really good. I'm putting him really low on the list as a replaceable because he's just that. He's replaceable, and he's going to get replaced. Probably with Sam Darnold, as crazy as that sounds, but I think right now Jimmy Garoppolo, the only reason he's ahead of those four is because he's kind of shown that he can win games already, although it might have been because of his defense, but he has shown that he can be a serviceable quarterback. He can be pretty good. The problem is he's just not consistent, and overall he doesn't really make the reads he should. So at 27, we kind of have something a little different here. I took another slash. I put Alex Smith / Taylor HEINICKE at 27, because if you guys have been following my Instagram for a long time, you know I'm a huge Taylor HEINICKE guy. I think Taylor HEINICKE, since he was with Minnesota, that was when I jumped on the train. I'm like, this guy's going to be good. Someone give him a shot. And then we saw when he played in that playoff game against the Buccaneers that he went off. And people were DMing me. They're like, you were right all along. And I was like, yeah, I know. But I actually really like Taylor HEINICKE. I would love to put him higher on this list, but he's not really going to get a real shot, I don't think. And my final replaceable on this list at 26 is Cam Newton. I know that is probably controversial, and I actually think that I could be controversial with myself because I don't think he's the 26th best quarterback in the league. I think he could be top 20 almost. The problem is, based on last season, he's shown that he's nothing but replaceable. The Patriots can't move forward with Cam Newton, and we kind of established that, so that's the reason why I have him in the replaceable category, but he is at the top because I think he's the best of the replaceables. So the next set is going to be 19 through 25, which I'm going to call the serviceable, where you can use them as your quarterback and they will win games. It's just not your ideal. You're looking to improve, but you don't need to. And at the bottom of this list, simply because he hasn't proved himself yet, I do think he's a good quarterback. He just hasn't done enough to prove himself as a good quarterback yet, so that's why I have to put him in the serviceable. And to that, I'm going to put Tua Tagovailoa. So we've seen that Tua can be a pretty good quarterback. The problem, of course, is that he hasn't just proven it that much to us. We've seen that he can kind of do it here and there. It's just the being consistent. That's what makes a real NFL quarterback. And Tua, as of right now, you've seen the reports of his teammates. They're unhappy with him. They don't want to play, not want to play with him, but they don't think he's ready, kind of NFL ready yet. And I think if they'll take the time to develop him, he'll be good. But the problem is most coaches won't give him time to develop. So he is serviceable right now just because we saw him win games last year. He had 10 wins on the season pretty much, minus Ryan Fitzpatrick. But besides that, he has shown that he can win games, so he is serviceable. That's why he's here at 25. At number 24, I kind of didn't know where to put this duo, I guess, because I'm not really sure what to expect out of them next season. And that is with the retirement of Drew Brees, of course. We have at 24, Taysom Hill / Jameis Winston. I think they'll start Jameis Winston next year, which I think in New Orleans he could be good, but of course we've seen his terrible reads. So this is kind of like, I'm not really sure where to put them. They're of course serviceable because we've seen them win games. We saw Taysom Hill go on a tear last year, but I'm just not sold on them as much as I'm just confused by them. It's like one of the only things in the NFL where I'm like, I just don't understand what the Saints quarterback room is. Like, I cannot comprehend it for some reason. Like, I think the Saints system is brilliant, and that's why they win so many games. But the problem is, if you throw Taysom Hill or even Jameis Winston anywhere else, I don't even think they're that serviceable of quarterbacks, especially Taysom. But for some reason, New Orleans makes them look so good, and that's why I kind of don't really know where to place them, so I'm just throwing them at 24. So at 23, we have another rookie from last season, and that is Jalen Hurts. Much like Tua, I think Jalen has shown that he can be a good quarterback. It's just getting the actual consistency from him that we need to see to be a great NFL quarterback. I think this upcoming year, Jalen will actually have what he needs to be a good quarterback. He'll have the one tight end focus of Dallas Goedert, and that's where he likes to throw the ball, as we saw a lot last year. And I think that Eagles system is going to be very beneficial for Jalen Hurts. So I think next season is going to be our real prove me season for Jalen. And I honestly think he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback. It's just actually seeing it from him. At number 22, we have a series of what I'm going to call pretty mediocre quarterbacks. Because we see they can win games and we've seen them at their best almost. But it's just their best isn't that great. And so at number 22, we have none other than Mitchell Trubisky. Now, I think we're all aware of what kind of quarterback Mitch Trubisky is, where we've seen him throw for these 400-yard, 4-touchdown games, but the latter of it is just so not worth it almost. The little 25-yard, 4-interception games that we get from him. He's such a hot and cold quarterback that you're just not sure. You're we should replace him, but we can't. But at the same time, we need to, but we win games with him. It's just kind of he is the definition of mediocrity right now. The Bears going 8-8 last year is just a perfect example of him as a quarterback, because he's so hot and cold, and the Bears last year were so hot and cold, and we just didn't really know what to expect from them every week. And so I kind of just have to throw Mitch at 22 here. So at number 21, I have a quarterback that's going to get replaced this year, but I still think that he, especially last year, played pretty well, more than I was expecting him to, and that is Teddy Bridgewater. Now, Teddy Bridgewater is a guy that, as we've seen, he's definitely a good starting quarterback. He's just not great. He has the games where you're Teddy Bridgewater's so good, and then he just falls off a cliff. Of course, it doesn't help that Christian McCaffrey was hurt this season, so we didn't really get to see what he could do with an effective backfield, which is where I think he's going to be best. But I think just right now, we can't really throw Teddy Bridgewater anywhere but the mediocrity level, so we're just kind of throwing him here at 21. And at number 20, we have another guy that's exactly like this, and I'm sure you guys can make a pretty good guess here, and that is the new Detroit Lions quarterback, Jared Goff. Unlike most people, I'm actually really excited to see how Jared Goff does in Detroit, because I want to see how he could perform with a less than stellar team. I know that having the Rams system, especially Sean McVay, we've seen how great Sean McVay is. I think with that system, I think any quarterback's going to do really well, and especially a great quarterback like Matt Stafford, as we'll get to later, I think he's going to do spectacular in that system, because I think Sean McVay's smart enough to actually build the system around Matt Stafford and do that sort of thing. Whereas I don't think Jared Goff has that straight up talent of Matt Stafford, to where if you throw him into a system, he'll need some time to adapt. He's a generally adaptable guy. That's what I like about Jared Goff, is you can throw him anywhere and he'll do fine. He'll do just good enough to win games most of the time. The problem is he's just not great. He's at that threshold where you're starting to think he's a top quarterback, and then he just stays there. And it's that's the problem I have with Jared Goff. But I think in Detroit, I actually think he'll play pretty well this season if they let him play, of course. But I think he'll start a couple games and he'll do pretty solid, and he's just one of those quarterbacks where you're like, you just need to see more from him, and that's kind of why he's at this number 20 spot. Now, at the final serviceable spot, I debated putting this guy in the next category, but I just felt like we couldn't based on what we saw last season. Although I do think he had a poor time last season, and frankly, I think he'll do really well next year, and that is at number 19, Carson Wentz. Now, I know Carson Wentz gained a lot of hate last season, and I think most of it's undeserved, and I think the switch to Indy is exactly what he needs to become that MVP quarterback that we saw in 2017. I think the Frank Reich offense is exactly how Carson Wentz thrived in the first place, and going there into Indy, he'll do the exact same thing. Especially having an O-line like the Colts, and having Jonathan Taylor, and then he'll have Pittman. I think all those guys are just such Carson Wentz guys. Like, I think that offense is tailor-made for Carson Wentz, and I'll be shocked, honestly, if he doesn't return to form next season. I am throwing him at 19 because I think last year some of the mistakes he made were not due to the failing system that Philadelphia had last season, but I do think that Indy will be a good fit for Carson Wentz, and I won't be shocked when we see him back to his top 10 form next year. At this next set, we have what I'm going to call the great starters. So this is going to sound like ridiculous to say, but I genuinely think that half the NFL has great starters. I would say actually more than half the NFL. I think 18 of 32 teams have starters that could win a Super Bowl. As ridiculous as that sounds, the problem is, of course, just how far 18 is from 1. I think that 1 to 3 is just so far ahead of everyone else. But, like, the 4 to 18, like, I wouldn't be shocked if any of these people won a Super Bowl in any coming year. From 18 to 13, we have the great starters, and as the name suggests, these are the guys that I think are more than good. Like, they're more than serviceable. These are guys you want on your team. And at number 18, I know this one's going to be controversial. If you guys have been following the page for a while, you already know who I'm about to say. I'm a big fan of this guy, and I think that all the hate around him is so undeserved because if you actually, like, watch the film and watch him play, it's one of the few guys I've actually done, like, in-depth studies on. And I think that he's such a good quarterback. I always call him top 10. That's probably an exaggeration. But at number 18, I have Kirk Cousins. So the reason I'm so high on Kirk Cousins is because, I mean, you've all seen it. Whether you want to say that you've seen it or not, we've all seen that Kirk Cousins can have not only flashes of brilliance, but flashes of, like, where you're like, there's no way that's Kirk Cousins right now. That dude, like, tosses for 405 touchdowns, and you're like, whoa, like, how is that Kirk Cousins? I mean, the reason I'm so high on Kirk Cousins is because if you, like, genuinely go back and, like, look at the film, like, I don't know what is so impressive about him, but, like, everything is so impressive about him. I'm just going to move on before I keep saying things and people are going to be mad that I'm so high on Kirk Cousins. So at number 17, we have another guy who I'm high on that some might find questionable, but I have, at number 17, I have Derek Carr. Derek Carr is another one of those guys where if you kind of just think about him in a general sense, you're like, yeah, like, he's just not great. He's not, like, he's like serviceable. People would call him serviceable because, you know, obviously you would take Derek Carr on your team, but you're not, like, vying for Derek Carr. Like, that's not your number one pick. You're not like, oh my gosh, the quarterback we need right now is Derek Carr. That being said, I do think Derek Carr has some great qualities that just make him such a good quarterback. Like, I really think that his decision-making is one of the best in the league. That at the same time, while his decision-making is so good, that's what, like, holds him back, because there are times where he just, like, doesn't take the risks, and I would like to see him take the risks because that's kind of what would set him apart from these guys. But the problem is sometimes he plays it too safe, and that's kind of why Derek Carr is in this, like, middle category that I'm calling the great starters, but most people would call it, like, just okay. At number 16, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to put 16 or 15 ahead because 15 had, you know, something happen that we'll never know now who would have really won Rookie of the Year. So, of course, at number 16, now that I spoiled it, I have Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's a guy that, coming out of college, I was super high on. I don't know, again, I keep referring back to my Instagram page, but if you guys had been following my Instagram page for a while, you know how high I was on Justin Herbert. Coming out of Oregon, I actually thought he was the top quarterback coming out of the draft, which sounds kind of ridiculous considering how good Joe Burrow was, but I was just that high on Justin Herbert. Like, not only did Justin Herbert, like, have one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen, he went to this Chargers team, and people were talking about how Tyrod Taylor's gonna turn this team around for I don't know what reason. But people were so high on Tyrod Taylor, and then, he gets hurt, and then Justin Herbert gets thrown into the game, and everyone's like, oh, like, they're forcing this rookie who's not ready into action, and he's gonna play terrible. But I think not only did he prove people wrong, but he really proved people wrong. Like, not only did he start right away and prove that he is a real quarterback in this league, he, like, went above and beyond and actually, like, showed that he is a top quarterback already. I'm super excited to see Justin Herbert's next season. Another season I'm super excited for is at number 15. Kind of spoiled this one already, but of course at 15 I have Joe Burrow. I think those two, and give it 5 years, they're both going to be the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I genuinely think that Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are the future of the NFL. The reason I have them so low is just because it's the rookie season, and I don't want to overreact based on the rookie season. But I'm overreacting on the rookie season. Based on what I've seen, I think that these two are going to be in the NFL for years to come minimum. So at number 14, I have Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger is another one where I'm kind of not sure where to put him, because I know that going into next year, I don't think he's going to play as well. But going into this year, I was thinking the same thing, and he actually proved me wrong. He played a really dominant game. He went 11-0 to start the season, and most people call it like a cakewalk or whatever, but it's the NFL. So I always hate that reason, first of all. That's for a different video. But I think Ben Roethlisberger actually came back from his injury, and he proved that he could still compete at a top level in the NFL. And that's what kind of shocked me about him. Like, I wasn't sure what I was expecting from Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm still not really sure what I'm expecting from Ben Roethlisberger, but he obviously has won Super Bowls. He obviously has won awards. He obviously has done it for so long, and we're just kind of writing him off. Like, I feel like he's the quarterback that, like, everyone's kind of like, yeah, like, okay, Ben Roethlisberger. Like, he's just kind of there. He's obviously good, but he's no Aaron Rodgers. He's no Tom Brady. And I feel like he's been written off for so long that he kind of just is going under the radar as, like, a great quarterback in the NFL. And at number 13, I really, really hate that I'm putting this guy this low. In fact, I'm thinking about switching him as we speak, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. At number 13, I have Matt Ryan. Another allusion back to my Instagram. If you guys have been following the page for a while, you know that I'm so high on Matt Ryan that is unbelievable. Like, I think that people have been sleeping on that guy for so long just because of the one Super Bowl. Like, they ignore the fact that he's thrown for 50,000 yards faster than anyone else. They ignore that he's consistently been a top 5 passer in the league every year. They ignore that he constantly fights through the horrible coaching that he's given in Atlanta, and he's terrific. He's outstanding. Some would go as far as to say he's elite. However, I do have to put him at 13 just because the way that the Falcons are handling their quarterback situation right now just makes me think that they're not sold on Matt Ryan anymore. And of course, the problem with that, it's kind of like a Matthew Stafford situation where everyone's like seeing how underrated this person finally is, and then the organization kind of just gives up on them. So that's kind of how I am with Matt Ryan. I can't put him any higher than the last spot on this great starters list, just because I can't justify putting him any higher just because of how the situation's being handled right now. So at this next set, we have what I'm calling the star quarterbacks from 12 to 9, where I think that these 4 people they're star quarterbacks. That's pretty self-explanatory. At number 12, I have Ryan Tannehill. So Ryan Tannehill is a guy that ever since he went to the Titans has just seemed to completely turn his career around. Like, we saw in Miami that he has the potential to be great, and he was for a game or two. But other than that, no one was really sure what to expect from Ryan Tannehill. And he came into Tennessee, and he was just winning games at a rate that, like, shocked everyone. And he was first in passer rating, and he was first in all these stats. And everyone's like, oh, but Derrick Henry. But they were just ignoring how dominant Ryan Tannehill was playing, because it just seems like so ridiculous if 5 years ago you're like, oh, by the way, Ryan Tannehill is going to be a top quarterback in the league. it just sounds ridiculous because we have this like preconceived notion that like, oh, Ryan Tannehill, like haha, like okay. But the problem is he is that top quarterback that we like joked about him being someday. He is a star quarterback now. He is leading his team to the playoffs consistently. He is leading them to the AFC Championship last year. I'm kind of tired of Ryan Tannehill not getting respect, and I think it's time we give him the respect he deserves. So at number 11, we have a guy that I always talked about how I'm not sold on this guy. I'm not like this. And then this season, I had people on my Instagram DMing me how they're like, I'm not sold on this guy. And I was just defending him. And I was shocked that I was defending him because I was slowly coming to this epiphany that at number 11, I have Baker Mayfield. I was coming to this epiphany that Baker Mayfield is the quarterback that we've set him up to be this whole time. And we saw this different Baker Mayfield that we saw from last year. We saw a new Baker Mayfield. He had totally adapted to this new Browns team, and he was finally developing in the NFL, which, I mean, no one really saw coming because he's the guy that throws all the picks. He's the guy with the terrible decision making. And this year, he kind of proved the opposite. He kind of proved that he was making great decisions and he was making the throws he needed to, and his accuracy this year was impeccable. It was insane. It was nothing like we had seen before from him. And so I genuinely think there's an argument that Baker Mayfield's a top 10 quarterback right now. I have him at 11, so I mean, you can argue him at top 10 for sure. And at number 10, we have a guy who I was talking about earlier, and that is Matthew Stafford. I think that LA right now is built exactly how Matthew Stafford needs it to be built. I honestly won't be shocked. I'm not even going to say if. I'm going to say when the Rams go to the NFC Championship this year, because they're that good. Adding Matthew Stafford ahead of Jared Goff was just that like extra push they needed this whole time. You saw them take down the Seahawks, who everyone thought was this powerhouse, and then you saw them go into Green Bay, and I don't like to rip Jared Goff like this, but we kind of saw the reason they lost that game was poor quarterback play. We kind of had this reason to believe that if the Rams just had a quarterback that they needed, they would have gone to the NFC Championship this year. And we're led to believe that Matthew Stafford is ready to take on that role. And I think when Matthew Stafford has the time that the Rams O-line's going to give him, and he has the weapons, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and just everyone, I think that Rams team's going to be scary. I think they're the Super Bowl contenders. I think they're the team to beat this year. At number 9, we have a guy that I know a lot of people aren't sold on, and I don't know why. And so at number 9, we have Kyler Murray. Everyone likes to talk about, oh, Kyler Murray's not that good. He has a weak arm. He only just runs. Or like, I don't remember what someone said to me the other day, but it was like, Kyler Murray's only good for running. And that's got to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. I think Kyler Murray's reads are, of the best in the league. I think the athleticism combined with the arm talent, I don't see what's not sold on Kyler Murray. I think it's so blatantly obvious that Kyler Murray is a top quarterback in this league, and I don't understand how people don't get that. So I'm calling the 8 through 4 the best of the rest. At number 8, this is a guy. If you know me, I've been telling people, you can never bet against him. You just can't. He's the best quarterback of all time. He's the best quarterback in the league right now. But if you're genuinely looking at it, you can't place him as the best quarterback in the NFL. I put him at number 8, and that is Tom Brady. So I have Tom Brady so low only for one reason, and it's the same reason we've been saying for the last 20 years, is it's just, he's got to fall off sometime. It's what happened to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was coming off this like crazy 55 touchdown year, and then all of a sudden he just fell off a cliff. And everyone's like, oh, like maybe he's getting old and now it's time for him to stop playing football. And so I'm kind of like, well, maybe it's Tom Brady's time. And then I think about it and I'm like, okay, never mind, it's not Tom Brady's time. So honestly, I'm putting him at 8, but you can count it as number 1 because I think that Tom Brady is always going to be the quarterback to beat. So at number 7, I have a really controversial one. A lot of you are going to be mad that this guy's so high on the list, but it's so hard to not put him this high on the list. And it's a guy that I hated coming out of college. Not like hated, but I was like, this guy's not going to be good. but I'm glad that he proved me wrong. This guy at number 7 is Lamar Jackson. I will be the first to tell you guys that I hate this new era of quarterback, the guys that run the ball instead of throwing the ball, just because I like watching quarterbacks throw the ball. But the way Lamar Jackson does it is just different. There's no real adapting to how Lamar Jackson plays the game, and that's the problem with playing him. You know the saying, you can't stop him, you can only hope to contain him? That's literally what you have to do with Lamar Jackson. It's honestly just his athleticism. I don't think his arm talent's that great. I think, especially throwing the ball, for some reason he throws the ball deep actually kind of well, but he cannot throw the ball like 15 yards downfield accurately to save his life. So I just think that the fact that like athleticism is just there, and like you've seen it when they line up in the pistol and they throw a pat forward to just kill someone, and then you have a guy on the outside and he has to stop Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson, and you're like, what? Like, they can't. That's the problem. So, and Lamar's smart. He doesn't let it on that he's smart, but his football IQ is stupid ridiculous, and that dude makes reads running the ball better than anyone and any quarterback in the NFL. And that's why you kind of have to put him at the top. I don't see how the few bad games he played this year, you just completely forget about his MVP season. I think he's still 7 at least. All right, so at number 6, we have a guy. A lot of you know this guy as the guy that I love to hate, but I will genuinely admit that Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So you guys may know I'm a Jets fan, right? So obviously it pains me to say Josh Allen's better than a lot of people. But out of college, obviously, you can't tell me you were high on Josh Allen coming out of college, because no one was. Everyone was like, oh, haha, the Bills traded up to get Josh Allen, like, oh, so funny, haha, like, they're gonna take this guy and he's gonna sit behind who knows for 4 years, and then he's gonna be terrible. And then of course they throw him in right away, and you cannot tell me that based on the first 2 seasons you thought Josh Allen was gonna break out this year, because it was so blatantly obvious that he was not good. Like, his arm talent is so there, but his accuracy is so not there. And that's the problem with Josh Allen. Sorry, that was the problem with Josh Allen. And then out of nowhere, this year, Josh Allen just comes out of nowhere and he just is unstoppable. I don't know what switch Josh Allen flipped in his head that he was just going to go ahead and turn the whole season around, but he did. And here we have the top 5. At number 5, this is a guy that last season I was so excited to see what he was going to do. I was thrilled after the first few weeks, and then boom, tears his ACL. Or what did he do? Tore his ankle or something. Not tore his ankle. Anyway, number 5 is Dak Prescott. I was so excited to see Dak Prescott this season, especially after he was throwing 500, 500, 500. He was throwing yards like it was going out of style. And he was coming back from games because his defense this season, everyone's like, oh, the Cowboys, the line and the defense carries them. And then Dak Prescott this season was like, all right, bet. And then just like completely blew up everyone's expectations. They were like, oh, well, the line carries him. And then the entire line gets hurt in week 1. And then Dak Prescott has to play behind the backups, right? Then they're like, oh, his defense carries him. And then this year, the Cowboys' defense was literally one of the worst in the NFL. And for some reason, Dak Prescott is still just leading them to these like victories that are just, it was insane. It was crazy to watch. His like 28-point comeback, that was like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. He was like tossing them just beautifully down the field. And I was so sold on Dak Prescott, and I was so excited to see what he was going to do. And he was literally on pace for what, like 7,000 yards this season? It was something stupid, like 6,000, 7,000 yards. And then, he got hurt. But I think in that short time frame he was in the NFL, he was in the NFL. I mean, that sounded like he died. For the short time frame that he was playing this season, I think he proved that there's really no doubts left about Dak Prescott. And at number 4, the last of my best from the rest, we have, you all should know it's coming here, we have Deshaun Watson. I think that everyone can pretty much accept that Deshaun Watson is the closest thing to the top 3 of the NFL that we can get. That dude has it all. There's nothing that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm like, yeah, Deshaun Watson needs to do that better. I mean, he has the arm, he has the footwork, he has the pocket presence, he has the arm strength, he has the arm accuracy. Like, he has everything you need in a quarterback, and he does it well. And the best part about Deshaun Watson is he's proved that it's not just potential at this point, it's straight up just talent that he has. And not only that, but he just continues to like set this new ceiling for himself every season, and it's crazy to watch him shatter every expectation that he always has set for him. It's always, oh, Deshaun Watson, 4,000 yards, boom. So in the last tier, we're gonna call it the NFL elite, because people get mad when I define elite as like 8 people, because obviously that doesn't mean elite. So I mean, it's pretty obvious who the NFL elite is. I'm just gonna give you my order of them. At number 3, I actually put Russell Wilson. I know some people have Russell Wilson at 1 ahead of Patrick Mahomes, and the crazy part is you can make the argument for that. Of course, that's why it's like so crazy to have these 3 at the top so far and away. But I'm just gonna go based off last season and then kind of just project what I think is gonna happen this season. And for me, I think Russell Wilson is the least likely to go to the Super Bowl of the 3. Maybe that's due to the team that he has around them. Maybe that's due to all kinds of things. But I think that of the big 3, I think Russell Wilson's the least to get to the championship. That being said, what places him so far and away, I mean, it's obvious. I don't really need to even say it. So at the number 2 spot is Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure you could have guessed that. I think Aaron Rodgers last season, coming into the season, I was actually like, yeah, okay, like Aaron Rodgers, obviously one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, if not arguably the most. I think he's coming into this season, I'm like, okay, he'll regress a little bit, and then the Packers secondary is going to fall apart because they always do, and then the Packers are just going to lose games. And kind of the opposite happened. I mean, Aaron Rodgers came in and he just dominated. We all just watched the season. I don't really need to remind you what happened, but we saw Aaron Rodgers MVP season, and it was obviously not hard to place him in the top 2. And at number 1, if you clicked on this video and you don't know who number 1 is, welcome to football. This guy, his name at number 1 is Patrick Mahomes. He's probably the greatest talent of our generation in all of sports. I can't really think of anyone else who's as up and coming and is already like the best in the league by far as Patrick Mahomes. I think, especially in the Super Bowl, I don't know if you guys watched the Super Bowl, but it was pretty blatant that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. There were a couple plays where like, I like to think that I've seen everything in the NFL, and my mouth during the Super Bowl was just like, I'm just like, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the only guy in the NFL that never ceases to amaze me, and it's not hard to place him at number 1. So there you have it. There's my all starting quarterbacks ranked 32-1. Make sure to subscribe for more football content. I plan on getting out running backs next, and then we'll do receivers, then we'll do tight ends, then I'll probably do line, and then I'll probably do defense as a unit. If you guys want me to go by position, let me know. I'm thinking about doing that. I'm going to start pumping out lots of football content for you guys, discussions, debates, all kinds of things. So make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave a like and comment. Let me know what you thought about this video. But I'd like to thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.